What if I told you that the strongest minds in history didn't lead armies or run empires? They walked alone. They didn't beg to be understood. They didn't chase attention. They didn't try to fit in. In fact, their silence made people uncomfortable. Their confidence felt dangerous, and their independence terrifying. One of those minds belonged to Friedrich Nietzsche, a man who looked society in the eye and said, "I don't believe in your God. I don't believe in your rules, and I don't care if that scares you." But how did he become that powerful? How do you build a mind so strong? It shakes people to their core. Let's find out. Nietzsche was born into a strict religious household. His father was a pastor. The path was clear. Grow up, preach, obey God. But young Nietzsche saw something no one around him could see. He felt the walls of tradition closing in. He saw how people blindly obeyed without ever questioning, and that terrified him. So he did something radical. He walked away from it all. By the time he was a teenager, he had already abandoned religion. By his mid-20s, he had declared, "God is dead." It wasn't just a line. It was a war cry. He wasn't trying to destroy faith. He was challenging people to think for themselves. But Nietzsche wasn't just rebelling. He was building something dangerous, something that would scare the world for generations to come. Nietzsche introduced a concept that shook the foundations of morality, the Übermensch, or overman. Not a superhero, not a ruler, but a human who creates their own values, who doesn't bow to public opinion, and doesn't seek permission to exist. The Übermensch doesn't need validation. They aren't cruel, but their calm detachment can feel like a threat, because they can't be controlled. They stand so far outside of society's norms that people don't know what to do with them. They don't beg for respect, they embody it. They are what Nietzsche believed every human could become, if they were willing to burn down everything they were taught. But to reach that level, you have to go through something most people spend their lives avoiding. Nietzsche believed strength was forged in pain. He didn't see suffering as punishment, he saw it as transformation. For years, he battled intense physical illness, migraines, vomiting, even partial blindness. Doctors gave up on him. Friends distanced themselves. He was alone, weak in body, but sharpening his mind like a blade. He wrote in freezing rooms, walked for miles in silence. And in that suffering, something unbreakable emerged. He once wrote, "What doesn't kill me makes me stronger." But he didn't mean it as a motivational quote. He meant, if it doesn't break you, it's a test. And if you survive it, you don't come back the same. But most people don't want that kind of strength, because it means being willing to suffer alone. For years, Nietzsche's ideas were too raw, too dangerous. He criticized religion, rejected morality, and laughed at society's need for comfort. He didn't sugarcoat. He didn't try to be liked. And the world responded in the only way it knew how. It called him insane. Even his closest friend, composer Richard Wagner, abandoned him. Publishers ignored him. Churches condemned him. Academics dismissed him as unstable. But here's the terrifying part. Nietzsche never begged to be understood. He simply withdrew. And in that silence, the world got nervous. Because deep down, people knew he was right. He exposed how fragile their beliefs really were. And no one likes being exposed. Nietzsche warned us. He said once belief in God faded, the West would face a crisis. Without faith, without purpose, without real values. What's left? He saw the rise of emotional weakness. People chasing pleasure, comfort, distractions, instead of meaning. He called it nihilism, the belief in nothing, and he feared it would consume entire generations. He predicted that people would stop thinking for themselves, that they'd crave approval more than truth, and without inner strength, they'd fall into depression, conformity, and fear. He didn't just write philosophy, he predicted the mental collapse of the modern world, and we're living in it. So how did he survive what others couldn't? Nietzsche lived by a brutal code. Seek out discomfort. He chose hard paths over easy ones. Practice solitude. He trusted silence over shallow friendships. Live as if your life would repeat forever. His eternal recurrence test. Would you live today the same way, forever? Never lie to yourself, especially when the truth hurts. Use suffering as fuel. Don't run from it. Study it. Master it. He never asked, "Do they like me?" He asked, "Am I being true to my highest self?" And that kind of mindset, it terrifies people, because it exposes how small their own thinking is. Nietzsche didn't want followers. He wanted people to wake up. His mind was dangerous not because it harmed others, but because it couldn't be controlled. He didn't scream. He didn't argue. He just stood firm. And that shook the world more than any speech ever could. So ask yourself, are you willing to suffer? To walk alone? To rebuild your mind from the ground up? Because once you do, you'll no longer need permission to exist. And that is what truly terrifies them.